Okay, so here it sits in the flesh, right in my shop. I wasn't ever sure if I'd get to this day. We saw these bikes come out in Europe a couple years ago, and I said, well, this is surely going to be the tip of the iceberg, and then they'll come to the U.S. Typically, they import stuff over about, a year or so after they release it elsewhere, and this one just wasn't arriving. So I don't know if it was COVID delays or whatever the case may be. It just took a really long time for this bike to be announced in the U.S. However, I held on to my deposit at the local dealer, Central Florida Powersports here in Kissimmee, Florida. And I just always kept my name on the books for the first one that arrived. So I think it was about 3 years that my name was on the list for this. And they didn't even know if it was coming or when or anything about it. They just knew if it was announced and then dealer orders were going to be placed that my name was already on the list. So I'm glad I did that because I'd say not until about a couple months ago that we got official word, I think maybe about September or so, 2024, back here in the U.S., that we got word that it was going to be arriving in dealers like around October timeline, and that was only like a month away. So they held on to this little secret for a while, but I held out, and luckily I got this bike 2 days ago, and that was December 6th or something. So it's here, and it's late December in 2024, and I'm super excited to have it. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit, go over the history of the bike and the chassis a bit. Probably not as in-depth as other videos, but basically just showing you the bike and telling you how excited I am to have it here finally. Okay, so clearly one of the first things you're going to notice about this bike is the stamped steel frame structure that it has. And that's a throwback to the original Trail 70s or ST70s as they're known elsewhere. It was that really kind of unique backbone shape that it has there in the middle. That's not typical of every motorcycle you see out there. And it produced a pretty long kind of wheelbase and the long banana seat that it has. This is it doesn't look like your everyday motorcycle, whether it be your standard style or cafe racer or sport bike or Harley cruiser. It's just different in several ways. But the thing that makes the Dax unique and the Trail 70s unique was that stamped steel frame. And they definitely kept that on this reissue here. So that's pretty cool right off the bat that they stayed true to that design. The other thing that's pretty lovable about this bike to me is the little Dachshund there with the wheels on it and the helmet, goggles. I'm a Dachshund fan, having had a Dachshund before. My wife and I had one for a really long time. And it's just something that I thought was pretty cute and a nice little homage to the Dax name. I believe it throws homage to the wiener dog because of the way it has the long body. And back on the older bikes, it had a foldable steering system or a foldable handlebar system where these handlebars folded down, you unscrewed them, and they folded down to make for easy transport. You could actually throw these in the back of like a station wagon, I think it was advertised as. And with those handlebars folded down, it kind of looked like a Dachshund with the floppy ears. So I think that's where they got that from. Everybody likes to correct people in these videos, so feel free on this one to correct me if I'm wrong on that. So we'll go ahead and talk about this long banana seat we have here. It's not the softest. However, what it does have is it has a rear grab bar right there. And that is because this bike comes equipped with passenger foot pegs. Right there you can see these fold down. And you have a bike that is designed for two. So that is a unique, awesome thing about this bike is that it's designed for two passengers, a rider and a passenger, obviously. These rear foot pegs right here make that possible. And it's actually a pretty comfortable bike to ride with two people. I have two kids, 7 years old and 9 years old. And the 9-year-old's about to be 10 and he's enormous. And he rode on the back of this and he thought it was great. He just actually grabbed onto that rear bar and hung on, and he said it was good. The 7-year-old did the same thing. He's a lot smaller, but he was on there and felt very secure, and it was absolutely perfect to go cruising with your kids. The other obvious thing about the Trail 70s and the Dax is this long stinger-like pipe here. That is also a throwback and an homage to the Trail 70s that had a long pipe just like this, but a little bit narrower, and ours had slots in it, kind of like that, but they'd go all the way down. This pipe and these bikes are obviously modernized. They come with a catalytic converter because they are fuel injected, so they are meant to meet emission standards, and along with that comes bigger pipes and heat shields to make everything a little bit safer and more modernized. So it's a very good looking pipe, though. It's definitely fits the motif. Moving to the front, we're looking at the front wheels. They are not stamped wheels like the old bikes. These are, looks like cast aluminum wheels, just like the Grom and the Monkey. This has a ABS front brake. I think they all come with that now. When I got my Monkey, there was a choice of ABS and non-ABS. I don't believe there's a choice with these. If there is, I'm not aware of it. The front fender looks like a takeoff from the Grom. I'm not a fan of this front fender, actually. I know it does its job very well. However, the old Trail 70s had the high mount fender, kind of like the Honda Monkey did, the modern Honda Monkey, and that's kind of not fitting for the retro style. It's kind of like putting a modern touch on the retro styled bike, which is okay in most cases, but in this case, on this bike, with this look, I'm just not really a fan of that low mount Grom style plastic fender. So one of the things I might do to this bike is see if there's a kit that you can mount the high mounted Honda Monkey type metal fender on there. I just think that would look much better on this bike. And going back up here, we have the front headlight here. These are basically same front headlight that you'd see on the Honda Monkey and the Trail 125. They did a better job with the side markers. And the front headlight's great. It's really bright, and it lights up pretty good. So the horn is a bit out of place there. That's something that the Honda Monkey had too. It's just kind of an ugly horn in the front. But on the Monkey, I actually remote mounted it. I moved it somewhere else to clean up the look a bit. So that might be something I investigate a little bit down the road, but not too worried about it at the moment. It might be worth noting that the color that this bike is, it's a bluish gray color, and I think it's I can't remember the actual name of the color of it from the catalog or from the website. I'll just pop it up here, maybe in font or something, but it's a color that you don't see on the classic Dax or Trail 70s. So they usually came in red. There's like a candy green that you can get them in, like a goldish sort of yellow, and a blue, definitely a blue. So the next version of the Dax that's supposed to come to the States is a glimmering blue. It's a darker, deeper sort of metallic blue. But I actually really like this color, even though it's non-traditional. I'm a big fan of the kind of grayish sort of colors like that, like this, and I didn't want to wait for the other color to come out. I just wanted the bike as soon as possible. But this is a very nice color. I'll zoom in here a little bit, and you can see it's actually metallic. I'm not sure how well we can see it, but it's a metallic grayish blue. It's a really pretty color in person, and of course they have the Dax logo here. This is a decal, a sticker, and the Honda logo is an actual emblem. It's not a sticker. And looking at the controls up here, very similar controls to the Honda Monkey. The gauge cluster is very similar. I even believe it has the little monkey blinking that comes up just the same way as the Honda Monkey does. And it's a nice compartment here. It's very clean, pretty well done. You know, the wires are not too sloppy looking. Nice flat black sort of finish on stuff. But yeah, it's pretty standard. It's not overdone, not too many things going on. Keeps a minimalistic look at it. So, and obviously there's selectable stuff on the gauge here. I'm not going to get into that. You can do your miles and odometer and stuff. So the grips are the same style like golf club grip. These grips are just fine. They're kind of tacky, as in sticky. I don't feel as if your hand's going to slip with them. Same big bulky brake levers that the Monkey has. The bar ends here are a little bit cleaner, I think, than the Monkey's, if I remember. Overall, very, very similar sort of control. And the throttle on the Trail 125 when I got it, it had a lot of play before it actually started going. And I was curious to see if it was like that on this bike, but it's not. It looks like there's a lot of play there, but when you're riding, when you turn it, it goes like it should. So I'm sure you can tighten this up, and if it starts bugging me like it did on the trail, then I'll do another video where I tighten that up. As with all the American released mini motos, they put this big ugly black plastic tail light housing on here, and it's a modern looking tail light. It doesn't have that same look as a vintage bike would have. And this is aggravating because the European models have that circle center light, and these little side markers I think are the same, but it looks so much better with that Euro style light. So that's probably something that I might seek out as far as a mod goes on this bike, just to keep that vintage look going on it. This thing, it serves its purpose and it's fine, but it's just kind of like the front fender, in my opinion, just doesn't look the part of the rest of the bike. And this whole assembly here on every mini moto I've had, the Monkey and Trail 125, they just have this really big, bulky, kind of overdone license plate holder and rear fender thing. It works fine. It's going to keep all the water off your back and the mud down, but it just looks like just way big and out of place. But you know, it's not going to bug me too much like it did on the Monkey, strictly because I just want to ride this bike in whatever condition, go through puddles and everything, and I'm just not going to go crazy with the mods on this like I did the Monkey. So while it's kind of ugly, you know, I'll keep my eye on aftermarket solutions that come up, but for the time being, it's not terrible. And you know, some people might think it is, but it is what it is, and it's that way because of laws and rules regarding DOT regulations. All right, coming back up front here, we're looking at the motor. And I like what they did here. On the Monkey, they had this really big black air box that looked like a big pillbox or something underneath the gas tank. And it looked out of place on that bike. This bike, they kind of went back to that Trail 70 exposed motor and minimalistic sort of view down here. One thing that pops out at me is the size of this air intake tube. It is very small. I'd say it's, I don't know, maybe 1.5 inches or so in diameter. It's not flowing a lot of air, I can tell you that, but everything here is tuned for the EFI and the way it is. And there'll be lots of modifications, in my opinion, coming out in the aftermarket for this air tube here, because you know, as a motor tuner and racer and tinkerer in my time, one of the first things you always do is try to open up that air box, get more air in there, and that helps, you know, gain some horsepower. But on these bikes, I never found that any of those mods did a whole heck of a lot to increase anything. They sound better, they look better, but as far as like gaining miles per hour and horsepower, it's not a monumental difference in the end, but sometimes they're just fun to do. The engine as a whole is the same 125cc 4-stroke engine that you see in the Grom and the Monkey and the Trail 125. There are differences between the Trail 125 and the Dax as opposed to the Monkey and the Grom, whereas the Dax and the Trail 125, and I believe the Super Cub as well, have a semi-automatic transmission. So They do not have a clutch. They have an automatic, semi-automatic clutch here, so all you have to do is just shift the gears. You don't need to pull in a clutch. That makes this bike very user-friendly for just about everybody out there. Anybody can ride this bike. You don't need to know how to operate a clutch. It's just shift 4 gears up and then all the way down is neutral. Very easy. If you've ever ridden any sort of 110cc bike or a four-wheeler, it's the same sort of style. So it's very forgiving, very user-friendly, very easy. But as opposed to those other bikes, the engine feels just exactly the same as it does in those power-wise. Very, very similar to the Trail 125. All right, so I turned the bike around so we can get a look at the airbox over here. It's a very vintage, really kind of chromed out airbox. I don't remember if the European models have it or not, but in that black area there, I feel like that should say something. I don't know. It just looks like it's missing something. It's missing a sticker, or maybe it could have said Dax 125. I know it already says it up there, or maybe ST 125. I think it. I don't know. It just looks like it should say something. But that's, I don't know. That's just me looking at stuff. So let's zoom in on the motor on this side, and this is where you see the fuel injection. You can see that intake pipe again. Let me try to get in a little bit tighter here. Very small little intake pipe. We have the injector, and this is the throttle body over here. So really simple design, but very modernized with modern fuel injection and electronic control, which makes it super reliable, super easy, and you don't ever have to tinker with it, I feel, unless you just want to try to add horsepower. But just a fun bike, easy to work with. Sometimes things can get a little difficult if you want to start messing with the ECU and everything, but that's why there's tuners out there like DHM and Cameron Jones. I think they'll have tunes for these things in no time, and that's what you really need if you want to replace that intake tube and you want to go with an exhaust. Those two things, you'll want to definitely get an ECU retune when you do those. All right, scooting over here to the back, we see a pretty subtle chain guard. I mean, there's been some chain guards like on the Monkey and the Trail 125 that just kind of look a little obtuse in my opinion, but this chain guard blends in. It's real subtle. I hadn't really inspected it that closely until now, but it's a pretty subtle chain guard. It does its thing. It doesn't look too ugly. Some people might think so. One thing I wanted to mention is these rear shocks. On the Monkey, those shocks in the rear were notoriously soft. I would bottom that bike out being 200 pounds and going through a slight dip in the road. And that was a little disheartening that I just got a brand new bike and kind of felt too fat for it, because in the end, maybe I was, 6 foot tall, 200 pounds. I always felt like that bike was made for a much smaller framed person. And sometimes here in America, we're not so small framed. So I don't want to speak for everybody, but, I'm a bigger dude. So maybe I'm on the wrong bikes. Shouldn't be on small bikes, but I find them fun to cruise around the neighborhood with. So I wanted, the shocks to be up to task, so I had to change them on the Monkey. But on this bike, these shocks seem way stiffer than the Monkey. The whole bike in general seems way stiffer than the Monkey. And I am almost positive the reason these rear shocks are stiffer is because of the 2-passenger design of this bike. If you have a rear passenger, these rear shocks need to be stiffer. And it seems like they did that on this bike. I think the capacity on it is about 300 pounds. So that's good for us big dudes out there, because being 200 pounds, that means I still got 100 pounds to spare. Not that I plan on gaining 100 pounds, but I do like to bring the kids around on the back. So cumulatively, we'll probably max out that 300 pounds when the kids get bigger. But the shocks are definitely up to task on this bike, which is cool. And we'll look at the rear tires here. It's probably same as the front tires. Gotta imagine same size, just like the Monkey. And these are the traditional V rubber tires. The IRC branded tires. I think they're V rubbers. That's what I read in the manual. They're for the street, and they're not going to do much of anything on dirt. I do plan on taking this bike on dirt a little bit, just because I ride a lot of dirt wherever I'm at. I'm a dirt bike guy, off-road guy. For the street, the extent of my street riding really just goes to cruising around the neighborhood, taking some nice little sunset cruises. I don't go on big roads. I don't do highways. I don't do traffic. I don't like it here in Florida. Unless I was by the beach or down in the Keys, I have no desire to ride on the streets here. It's not my thing. It's not my style. So it will probably come to me changing these tires out for some knobbies, just for nostalgic sake, because I like the old Bridgestone flat knobbies that they had, the kind of like the big block style tires, maybe like the Shinko Mobbers or something, that will make the bike look a little bit more rugged, a little bit more off-road capable, although I don't plan on doing heavy off-road. But there are those odd times where I ride over to my parents' house where we have our motocross track and, chase the kids around in a field or something. So it's always nice to have a little bit of knobby on there. But the tires are just fine. I've ridden on the street with them. I got about 10 miles on the bike, all street riding, and they're smooth. They're just fine. I don't really push the limits of grip, so I can't tell you how good they grip. But for what I've done, they've been fine. So tires are good to go. Shocks are good to go. And it makes for a nice little street bike overall. All right, so closing it down here, getting to the end, we'll go ahead and put the ignition key in this key slot here and turn it, and that will pop the seat open to where I'll show you next. Okay, so we're looking underneath the seat, and what you see here, the gas cap. Obviously, you open this up, and that is where the petrol goes. I use 89 ethanol free in my bikes here because I don't ride them enough to where I'm going to use enough fuel to use that 10% ethanol blend. I don't want that stuff in my bikes. And this bike is not rated to need high octane, so good to go there. Over here, I haven't opened any of this stuff up yet, but I can probably assume it's going to be the normal stuff, the battery, the ECU, and yeah, I don't know. It's pretty different than the Monkey. The Monkey, you opened up the seat, and you had the ECU down there and the battery. So they can only cram so much into these bikes. I'm just curious to see how it will be to get to a battery and get to work. Actually, I can see the battery underneath here. So the battery's up there. I'm sure if you pop this plate off, you'll see the terminals. So that might be cool. I only expect this battery to last for about 2 to 3 years, like it did on the Monkey, but you'll want to replace these with a lithium-ion battery, much lighter, and they crank the bike much better, and they last a lot longer. So pretty cool. I might dig into this stuff at some point, but like I said before, I'm just looking to ride this bike and have some fun right now. All right, coming over here, you see this little bundle, and this is going to be the toolkit, which is probably going to be a laughable toolkit because Honda doesn't really give you the tools to kind of fix your bike, even if you wanted to. This is something that comes with at least the Monkey and the Trail 125, and it is a helmet tether. I'll show you that in a second. And this is really not a toolkit. This is a fuse puller. So that's all there is in there. Nothing else. Let me know if should be something else in here because I feel like it's missing something. But I like how it stows away there. Maybe some clever folks out there can assemble a little toolkit that'll fit in there. But I don't anticipate much repairs on the road with this bike, so that's probably what Honda was thinking too. Okay, so this helmet tether, this is designed to go through your helmet hook and go like that. And then when you close the seat, which I'll do here in a second, this kind of keeps your helmet locked onto the bike and prevents theft. So let me go ahead and close the seat and zoom out, and we'll show you that. As you can see there, this will hold your helmet and presumably put it on the seat or let it hang down there, and nobody can steal it unless they have your key. Okay, so up here, when I got the bike, I saw this rubber band on here, and I even talked to my salesperson about it, and I said, hey, that's pretty cool. They have a area to where you can store your papers now, your documentation. And when I got home and started reading the manual said this is a document holder, and it showed an envelope on there. And I immediately got on the email to my salesperson and said, hey, I think there's supposed to be like a pouch or a little holder or something that comes with the bike. So he investigated it, and he said, nope, it turns out that is to hold the papers that and the little booklet that came with the bike. So I put my registration in there and the owner's manual, just because I wanted to add a little bit of heft to the assembly here, just so it had some more thickness there. And that is where I'm going to keep my registration. So that's actually cool. And I see right here too, I didn't notice this before, but there is an Allen key right here. So from what I could tell, I think it's to probably take out the battery hold down here. So that's pretty interesting that there's an Allen key there as well. I'll have to do a little bit of research on that. If you know what that's for, comment down in the description and comments of the video, and I'd like to hear what that might be. So that kind of sums it up. So we'll close this seat up and we'll finish this up. Alright, so that sums up our tour of the new Dax 125. So as I've learned with Honda Mini Motos, I've had quite a few. I've had a Grom, I've had the Monkey, I still have the Trail 125, and now I have this. The grand thought of these bikes is to just have fun with them. Don't expect too much. Don't try to make them do too much, although I've found they're pretty tough and they can do quite a lot. They're kind of in that realm of like a dual sport motorcycle, to where you want it to be able to do everything, but it's not going to be able to do any one of those things really well. What I can tell you about Honda Mini Motos is that what they do really well is allow you to cruise around the neighborhood with your friends and family, jump down to the 7-Eleven and get a soda or a hot dog or whatever you want to get down there, take the kids for a little spin, get young kids into motorcycling by allowing them to ride with you on a bike that's very benign, easygoing, not loud, not fast. They're not going to feel scared on this bike. It looks cool. It's nostalgic. Don't expect it to be a highway bike. My Trail 125 doesn't go much above 55 miles an hour. The Monkey, the fastest I've ever gotten that was probably like close to 70 with all the mods. My Grom, when I first got it, was able to go about 85 miles an hour, and it was not really the bike for that, so I detuned it all. At the end of the day, you're going to need a motorcycle that does what it's designed to do. So if you want to ride on dirt, get a dirt bike. If you want to ride on the street and you want to go fast and you want to be on a highway, don't get these bikes. Get a bigger bike. If you want to tour, do long distance rides, don't get this bike. This bike is a play bike. It's a novelty bike, as is the Grom, as is the Monkey, as is the Trail 125. As I've said before though, the Trail 125 is a different beast. That bike can actually do everything, and surprisingly, I haven't been able to find something that bike doesn't do well. So other videos though, check them out. So it's a play bike. It's a fun bike. It's a novelty bike. You're going to have a great time on it. You're going to feel good on it. It's going to make you smile. And if you're like me and the Trail 70 brings nostalgia to you and brings good memories, you're going to absolutely love this bike. I only got 10 miles on it, but it's been a blast. Those 10 miles have, actually 3 of those miles came from the dealership. So I know they had a blast on it too before I even got it. And I'm gonna have to talk to my salesperson about that one. But so the 7 miles I've put on it, they've been fun miles with my kids, just cruising around the neighborhood, enjoying the weather, enjoying the sunset. And in Florida right now it's the winter, so we can head out and ride and just have a nice time to be outside. So that's what this bike's for, and that's what you should buy this bike for. So hopefully those words from my experience help you out. I tried to do way too much with the Honda Monkey. I tried to do way too much with the Grom. I pushed the Trail 125 to do everything just to see if it could do it, and it did it. However, I have a Gassy X300 two-stroke for my heavy trail riding and motocross action. I have the Trail 125 for my utility, for my work stuff, if I want to take it to a car race and carry around gas jugs and stuff. And now I have this bike to be able to put my kids on the back and then go have a nice spin around the neighborhood. So you need a bike for each occasion. And this bike is definitely for the occasion of just bringing a smile to your face and riding around the neighborhood. So we'll take a ride on it. We'll do that in a future video. And I'll explain to you how it handles and everything in that video. But for now, hope you enjoyed this walk around, this little orientation of the Dax 125. And hopefully my enthusiasm and excitement for this bike will get you pumped to maybe get your own Dax. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.